Hey guys, what is up? I've gotten multiple requests to speak on a few different topics, but I've noticed that almost all of them seem to revolve around Dragon Ball Super, specifically its anime, and occasionally comparing its anime to its manga and asking me to address a few things. I just want to say that I do appreciate that everyone wants my feedback, but holy crap, the sheer volume of the different things people want me to talk about would take almost forever. Um, Someone asked me if I'm going to review every arc of the show. I probably will. I was trying to do every episode at first, but it started getting too hectic. I didn't have a reliable means of seeing the subs at the time, and by the time the simulcast came out and the subs were out within the hour, it was just like too hectic. So I was not able to do that. But I do want to kind of address some stuff while I'm here. Because I think that the topic is, talked about enough and worried about enough, frankly, that it kind of warrants it at this point. And that is the concept of super overall. There's this debate of whether or not it was even necessary, whether or not it was worth it. There's this belief among some people that it has caused irreparable damage to the franchise, that it's somehow worse than this series, worse than this filler here, worse than the movies, worse than yada yada. I'm going to tackle that notion, and I'm probably going to say some things that I know a lot of people will not like. And I want you to keep in mind that there are certain things that I'm going to say that are not meant to be offensive. They are not meant to be slights, even at the people that they seemingly are directed at. Just keep that in mind. But I want to go a little bit into this, okay? And this notion that somehow Dragon Ball Super is, well, a stain, not only on the franchise, but on the genre, on anime in general, etc. There are a lot of really hyperbolic statements surrounding the series, and it's almost completely undeserved. Now, I'm not going to say the series doesn't deserve criticism at some points. It does. I'm not going to say that the bad animation thing wasn't a thing for a while. It was. There were some episodes that were genuinely badly animated, but as a whole, the animation was okay. But then came this notion that things that were in like episode 5 and episode 24 were like par for the course for the entire series. It also never took into account anything to do with production schedule errors, and while, yes, that is still Toei's fault, it's not the fault of the animators, and it by no means is a detraction on the series in terms of storytelling or characterization, which are frankly, in my opinion, more important. Now, I know some people don't like that, and in some cases, bad animation can seemingly make something unwatchable. And yes, even some of the cleanups on the Blu-ray versions weren't the best because, let's face it, the rough animation they had to go over were kind of lacking. But there are reasons for that, contextually. For example, there's the whole situation with Super is that for the longest time, the people just assumed that this was something that had been in the works for a while, and so when that came out, it's just, oh, they don't care. These animators, they don't care. They got no heart. They don't care. It don't matter to them. It's a cash in, etc. Not exactly true. In fact, I'm actually going to link you guys to a video that actually explains all this, honestly, a lot better than I probably could, from YouTuber Anime AJ, who also does, I'm probably pronouncing that name wrong, so I apologize, but he does stuff on Kensenshu too, but he actually does, interestingly enough, videos on the technical aspects of things that go on in Dragon Ball Super, including who the animation supervisors were, who the studios were, who the animators were, the director, the storyboarder, etc. And he actually did touch on this very topic. Namely, especially in episode 5, that Super started production very late. What I mean by that is that most companies, when they're going to start an anime series, they actually start production like 5 to 6 months in advance. Super only got 2. They only got 2 months in advance before they were told to start animating. The manga even got less time than that, which is probably why the Battle of Gods arc was so short. I think that it was originally intended to be a preview manga besides, and then turned into something else, which is weird. But, they got virtually no time to start this. They just kind of had to leap right into it. And because of that, they didn't have the time for the normal rotation for the teams and everything, and the directors, and everybody kind of had to put out content fast, and that's what happened with episode 5. In fact, I believe he actually said the director of that episode contributed some animation himself, actually put in animation work to try to make the deadline. So, I mean, the animation, yeah, it was bad. There was a reason for it. It doesn't make it less bad, per se. But it's also not a case of the people who were working on the thing didn't care. In fact, quite the opposite. I mean, the guy cared enough to actually make this even halfway presentable that he actually put in work himself to get it done in time. But, yeah, the other thing that I want to touch on, though, is this weird idea that somehow this series is just terrible because power scaling. Now, that's the thing. Power scaling, honestly, is the least important aspect of Dragon Ball to anyone but fanboys. And the reason it's important to them? Battles. They need these power scales to be the way they are, the way they think they are, because battles. Alright? Now, I'm saying this as a preface because I'm going to get into why their complaints don't have merits anyway. But I will say this. Even if the power scaling was kind of borked, like beyond repair, like some people are claiming, it would not be the end of the world. It simply would not. And in point of fact, the fact that it's a complaint now is actually kind of hypocritical. And what I mean by that is, okay, when Vegeta, alright, saw Bulma get slapped by Beerus, what happened? He flew into a rage so extreme that it somehow multiplied his power 50 times over. Alright? Like 50 times over from where he was as a Super Saiyan 2. Right? He somehow entered Super Saiyan 2 and wound up 50 times stronger than normal. More so even when attacking Beerus. If we are to genuinely believe that the line that Roshi speaks that he might even have surpassed Goku is to be believed. And what I mean by that is that would be a greater boost than we have ever seen Gohan have, than we have ever seen any of them have, really. I mean, yeah, sure, Gohan managed to put a hit on Frieza, but Frieza was similarly unfazed, but that's not the point. The point is, Beerus' gap in power is far greater than the gap between Gohan and Frieza and Namek, okay? If we're being comparative. And yet, nobody complained about that. In fact, I saw half the same people who were actually cheerleading that turn into the people who are now complaining. It seems to me that power scaling isn't something worth complaining about unless that power scales in favor of the wrong characters. Then suddenly it's this uber important thing where, if not done right, will ruin the entire series for life. I do not, under any circumstances, for even 2 seconds, believe that to be the case. But that's the thing. That's the hypocrisy of all this. Similarly, I have seen, although some people did still complain, less complain about Gohan going from the level he was at to suddenly able to at least get in one or two hits on someone who's in Super Saiyan God form. Now, presumably, again, Goku wasn't going all out, because the second he did finally go completely all out, it was literally over so fast that Gohan had been knocked out before it even registered with his nervous system. Okay? But still, I mean, that's a pretty huge leap in power, and he gets it inside the span of, I believe, about 8 to 10 hours in series. So it's I mean, this coming after they complain because somebody, I mean, Krillin had what happened in episode 76 happen out in the woods, okay? Plus, he's been training like pretty much nonstop since then. They made that very clear. He trains very regularly. He's even got a room dedicated to it. 17 has been able to improve himself for over 10 years since the last time anyone saw him. Right? And Toriyama did confirm that that 17 and 18, since they were human-based, would indeed be able to train their bodies to improve and get stronger. So, the big problem then becomes, why isn't it okay for them to improve that much over time, and what specific events seem to unlock their potential, but these guys literally just, either get really, really mad or get stronger at, just for training for a couple hours, and boom, there he is. I mean, we saw the same thing with Frieza, too. They complained about that for some reason, and yet then they wanted the same treatment given to Cell. It's either okay or it's not okay at all. See, but I take issue with this idea that's so prevalent in this fandom, that it's not okay unless it happens to this person, or it's not okay unless it happens to this person too. If it happens to them too, then I'm okay with it. That is supremely hypocritical. But again, it's really not happening, with like very few exceptions, and honestly, those exceptions are kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't moments. You're either going to have to do it and endure a smaller vocal minority complaining about, power scaling, or you're going to have to not do it and risk an even bigger majority complaining about how literally everybody but this character got this. And that was in the case of Vegeta having to get stronger because he's the protagonist's rival, and if he's nowhere near the protagonist anymore, what role does he even have? It was one of the big flaws with GT. Vegeta was nowhere near Goku's level anymore, and because of that, he was reduced to a status of a secondary character. Pan, Trunks, had more presence in the series than his own rival. Because, again, Vegeta's primary role is Goku's rival. And when they can't play off each other anymore, what purpose does he have? I mean, Pan has a purpose in the story because she was his granddaughter. Trunks had a purpose in the story because they were out in space together. Vegeta no longer serves any purpose other than to exist for the sake of existing, because he has to exist because he existed in the story. And maybe occasionally fight. That's it. The most he was involved was when a villain took over his body, and that was it. When he was essentially possessed by the bad guy. Vegeta's biggest contribution to GT for the longest, right there. Almost nothing before that, very little after that, until they decided, screw the rules, we're gonna give him Super Saiyan 4 too. That was a big storytelling problem with GT, and it was something that people complained about, and they can't risk that happening again here, so they had to find a way to give Vegeta that. So that's why Vegeta got that rage boost. That's why Vegeta got, the God Key, even though he didn't go through the ritual, and we're probably never going to find out how he got it, except, he got it on his own, and that's it. It's kind of... Honestly, it is a little lazy from a storytelling perspective, but it's, again, a case of if you didn't do it, you run into a problem. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. So, Ah, keep that in mind the next time everyone says Goku has all his power handed to him and Vegeta has to work for it. Vegeta literally got that God Key off screen. Never explained. Vegeta got that rage boost out of nowhere. Never seen him get anything quite like that before, but hey, he's got it. Became an issue with Trunks later. Now, see, Trunks I take less issue with because honestly, the whole Super Saiyan Rage thing that people want to talk about, it's a Toei name. What I mean by a Toei name is that it's not a proper name. It's not even used in the series. It's a marketing term. You know, it's something they invented specifically to be able to sell toys of it, sell cards of it, sell it in video games. It's not a proper form per se. It's sort of like that what they tried with the quote unquote imperfect Super Saiyan or whatever from the Lord Slug movie, where they kind of borked what Super Saiyan was gonna look like, trying to preview it in that movie, and then it's like, oh hey, well we can just call it something else and sell toys of it, and there you go. Uh, or how some people insist that Goku's Super Saiyan form is now no longer Super Saiyan but perfected Super Saiyan because of a Toei name. Those are what I call Toei names. When it's a name that's not really present in the lore in the series, and it's just like something that's put out there, specifically for the marketing purposes. They want to sell toys of this. That's a Toei name. And that's what this Super Saiyan Rage is. All it is, really, is Trunks getting really, really pissed off and firing off all his ki in, like, one blast, or focusing it into one short burst of strength. Because you'll notice every time he does that and uses it, he's down. He's down, he's panting, he can't hardly move. It's like... It's simply like summoning all your power into like one big shot and firing it off, and then you're drained. I know that some people want to insist that it's a new Super Saiyan form just because, oh, my Super Saiyan forms, my transformations, but nah. I mean, it's really just it's frankly just rage. That's it. Anger. Extreme anger, and unleashing all that power at once. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, I don't recall too many people complaining about that. I do remember some, okay? I mean, by and large, there are some fanboys that are like so obsessed with their power scales and their homemade charts and their estimates of where each character's power has to stand by this point in the series, even though power levels are explicitly stated to be BS. I know a lot of people seem to think Team 4-Star, invented that, but no, that's actually a thing in the series. You cannot assign a number to someone's power level because, they can raise it, they can lower it, they can hide it, they can, bring more out. Goku's power level went from, 300 something to over 1,000 when he was charging the Kamehameha fighting Raditz. One of the entire points of that is to show that fighting to these guys, it wasn't a pure thing. It wasn't strength from within it or anything like that. They tried to boil it down to a quantifiable numeric science, and it's what bit them in the butt more often than not. Something that even Ginyu kind of started to realize, because even he could tell, you have the ability to hold back your power. I want to see some of it, and he saw him get up to 180,000, and, he had been hiding all that power all that time, and Goku says, this isn't even close to my max. Like that kind of blew his mind, but at the same time, Ginyu was beginning to grasp the idea that, the whole power level thing just wasn't sufficient anymore. Or at least the power levels as they knew them weren't. But again, I'm kind of getting sidetracked here, but the point is, I don't think power scaling is going to hurt a series. I really don't. And one of the writers of Super did in fact come out and say that it was his understanding that the fights that Goku had when he was scouting other fighters in Super Saiyan Blue were indeed, well, scouting fights. What that means is that he wasn't going full power. He was not taking that form to beat them. He was not fighting to win. He was fighting to gauge his opponent's strength and their reaction to strength. So what that means is, no, that doesn't inherently mean that these guys can, push back against the power of this. Krillin pushing back in the Kamehameha obviously did not have Goku going full power. Not even a little bit, because all he did was add a little bit more to it. Boom, it started going back. Goku fighting 17 to gauge him. 17 says, oh, I'm holding back too. Yeah, maybe. That could well be. But Goku is also going nowhere near the level of power he's capable of. So no, that doesn't mean that they're on the level of that. And as people should know very well by now, Goku has some pretty good ki control. And that's the other thing that I'm so sick of hearing people say. Ki control is a BS excuse invented by fanboys to defend this series. It's literally been in there since Dragon Ball. Just like people complaining about Frieza meditating to learn to control his ki and that making him stronger. Been a thing in there since Dragon Ball. Mental training, image training, vision training to improve yourself. Been there since at least Namek in Dragon Ball. I mean, Gohan and Krillin kind of engaged in some of it. It's not an alien concept to this series, and it's not something that was just invented to get Frieza stronger. But again, these same people then want them to turn around and have done that to Cell instead, who was supposedly going to be on the level of Super Saiyan gods with an hour and a half of training. Less than, actually. Which always amuses me, because you can tell that so many of the people with so many of these complaints do not watch the show, because I say that because I saw so many people say that they could have done that with Cell if they had just stuck him inside the time chamber for that hour and a half. It's like, first of all, that only gets him a couple months. And I know that you're trying to argue that because he's got Frieza's cells, he can get that strong in a couple months. He still wouldn't be on that level, first and foremost. But second of all, it's like the time chamber, the Rosat kind of went kaboom. Vegeta literally blasted his way out of it because, he's the prince of all drama queens. So when he decided he needed to make an exit, he just blasted the door off again. And oh my God, Mr. Popo's going to hate that man forever. But yeah, they got to fix it again. Hopefully this time with a blast-proof door. But yeah. They can't. I mean, if that was the case, they probably could have grabbed Boo, stuck him in there, and had his nap done just in time for them to leave. It wasn't an option because Vegeta blew up the Rosat. So, God, I love Vegeta's temper tantrums. Okay. But the other thing that I notice is that this is where the first thing about the manga comes in. This concept of power scaling being terrible in the anime but great in the manga. That's not 100% true. First of all, you gotta understand, power is handled way differently in the manga. Hell, Super Saiyan forms are handled way differently in the manga. Toyotaro, true to his AF days, took Super Saiyan God and made it Super Saiyan 4, and essentially took Super Saiyan Blue and made it Super Saiyan 5, with all the drawbacks of Super Saiyan 3. You can use it and it's super powerful, but by God, does it drain you so fast. Which means it's a wonder how in the world they managed to use it to, beat Frieza. Since they beat that by war of attrition, he's going to have to essentially rewrite exactly how they beat Frieza when he inevitably has to address that in the manga. So, that'll be something. But, that's neither here nor there, but the fact of the matter is, when Trunks showed up, what they have Trunks do in the manga is such a massive grievance, if that's your big deal, power scaling and whatnot, because what they have Trunks do is some all new BS. Trunks is sparring with Goku, similar to what happens in the anime. Goku kind of wants to see how strong Trunks has gotten, and, it's like, hey, you're almost as strong as me in Super Saiyan 2. You've been training, and he's like, yeah, I've been training every day for the last, X amount of time, and there's no way that I'm gonna, stop, yada, I'm the only protector, etc. And he's like, okay, well, in that case, let me show you a level of power that you probably haven't seen. And he goes Super Saiyan 3, and he basically one-shots the kid, and that's it. And Trunks is like freaking out because he didn't even know there was a level beyond 2, which he achieved training with the, Kaioshin. But, but in the manga, when this happens, Trunks says, you know what? I always knew that this form's power, wasn't up to snuff. It wasn't satisfactory. It wasn't enough for me. And he just charges up. And suddenly his Super Saiyan 2 has a multiplier greater than, because he's almost on par with, Goku at Super Saiyan 3. Goku has to pop into Super Saiyan God real quick to kick the kid and make it look like he still won as the Super Saiyan 3. He basically fought dirty just to pull off a win. Instead of, doing what Goku would do, get excited that someone managed to get that strong without having to take another transformation and wondering, hey, can I do that? No, he gets kind of salty that this kid matched him, pops into a higher form too quick for them to notice, knocks him out, and then pops back down, and makes it seem like, oh, I was Super Saiyan 3 the whole time. Vegeta got ticked off by it. Whis thought that it was rather, dirty, and even Beerus was, actually disgusted by it. Seriously. Oh my god. But that's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is, knowing that Super Saiyan forms are only multipliers of one's base power, for Trunks to have essentially pushed himself in Super Saiyan 2 to be on the level of Goku, who, by the way, by this time, has not only had God Ki, but had God Ki for years, having gone into the Rosette with Vegeta to train. They came out with the beards and everything. God. Even if they skipped that in the manga, though, I mean, they've had it for a good long while. They've trained with gods. They've improved massively. They are way stronger, okay, than they were before. And Trunks, being Trunks and having trained and having only unlocked Super Saiyan 2, apparently, according to this, either has so much base power that he was holding back that in their base forms, Goku and Vegeta should be like ants to him. Let alone in their Super Saiyan 2 form, which means why in the world would he go seek two people who, to his knowledge, would be far, far weaker than him to go help him? Or to come help him. Or number two, he somehow managed to arbitrarily increase the multiplier of that form to be well above the multiplier than it should have been. Which isn't a thing one can do. See, that's the thing. If people were seriously upset about the power scaling in the anime, that would piss them off. It's not about the power scaling in the anime, it's about who's getting these boosts that is upsetting people. And I wish to God they would just admit it. Admit it. You're being a fanboy. You don't like that this character that you think is a joke, or that this character you don't like as much is now on par with this character that you like. Okay? But that's a whole nother kettle of fish. The point is, these are things that are not hurting the series. And honestly, the characterization, and I know a lot of people want to try to complain about this, has been very on point. And what I mean by that is that there are a lot of complaints about certain characters being out of character that are not out of character. This has happened a few times with Vegeta, where he seems to be somehow, quote unquote, made into a joke. It's like, first of all, that's not out of character. Out of character would be how he reacts to it. And honestly, it's been pretty in character. Oh no, the way he was acting around Beerus and acting so scared. Yeah, that's in character. He knows what Beerus is. He knows what Beerus is capable of. He knows that Beerus doesn't even need to fight them. He could literally just tap them and they are erased from existence. Beerus is something they wouldn't even stand a chance of fighting. Vegeta may be proud, but Vegeta is also not stupid. And Vegeta has also demonstrated the willingness to do things that he would otherwise find embarrassing for the sake of protecting his family, and in some cases, even for the sake of potentially getting a leg up on Goku. I mean, he actually humbled himself to the point to actually asking someone to be his teacher. And even learning how to cook just so they would take him on. I mean, but the biggest person who is subject to this accusation is Goku. There is this weird notion that Goku is somehow extra stupid, that Goku is completely callous and uncaring about anyone but himself, that Goku, once again, is constantly ditching his family, doesn't care about his sons, doesn't want to spend time with them, isn't supportive of them, etc. And there's even this popular idea, again, from people who are not watching this series, that's still popular today. I mean, you see it all over the Facebook meme pages, the Twitter meme accounts, etc., where Goku has essentially doomed all these universes to die just so that he can have a tournament. That this is entirely happening because of him. That Beerus warned him not to have this tournament because all these universes would be destroyed. And yet, when you watch it, you find out that even Beerus didn't expect that to happen. Goku didn't expect that to happen at all. And then you come to find out that, oh no, the reason you didn't expect this to happen at all is that we were planning this all along. You just gave us a perfect opportunity to turn it into a sport. And we found this out how long ago? How many weeks ago now has it been? Like, I mean, we're on episode 98 this week. And that was in episode, what was that, 82? 83? So, 90, okay, so here we go. 98, 87, 6, 5, 4, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Yeah, months ago, man. Like all the way back in May or March. You know, it's July now. We've had like 4 months to process this fact that this was not Goku's doing, and yet people who again do not watch are still running around spreading that and making jokes about how this was Goku's fault. This is like one of my biggest pet peeves about this series. Isn't the series itself, it's the people who complain about the series who clearly aren't watching. Like, I will engage someone and talk to someone who, you know, watches it and still has complaints, because, you know, nothing's above criticism, and I will talk to them about it. I may think it's a stupid criticism, but I will, you know, try to discuss it with them. Stuff like that, you can't even talk to these people because they don't care, because they've already made up their mind that this is wrong and this is how it was because this is what I saw, even though they explain this later. That doesn't matter. There are even people trying to say that they actually wrote that episode and wrote that change in there only because they saw the backlash. It's like, do you not know how far in advance episodes are, penned and prepared and recorded and produced? Like, no, I'm sorry, they're not going to be able to make a change like that in less than 2 weeks. But, again, not the point. But the point is, that is revealed. That is, out there now. People still don't care. They still spread the other. Because they don't watch. People complain about Krillin getting that power up. You tell them about what happened before. They said they didn't watch that because it was filler. And that's the thing. Super has filler in terms of stuff that's not part of a huge, big arc. Yes. It does not have filler in the same sense as Dragon Ball Z did, where it has filler that is completely separate and does not factor in to the rest of the show. The closest you could come to making that argument, honestly, was probably the Aurelia episode. But again, the Aurelia episode is probably the sole case you could really make that for. And I mean, there are a couple like mini arcs that can be like separated unto themselves per se, but there are things that. My apologies. One moment. Alright, I'm sorry for the background noise. I do have very trigger-happy dogs when it comes to hearing any noise outside, unfortunately. But, as I was saying, there are certain mini-arcs you could maybe make that case for, but even then, stuff in them is referenced later, sometimes casually, sometimes directly. The events are actually rather important. So, and especially what happened in 73 and 74 for Gohan, and 75 and 76 for Krillin. Those were important episodes, and yet I saw so many people skip them on the grounds that it was supposedly filler. And it's just not. So, it's like, why do people complain about things happening when they don't watch everything and then they miss context? Or when they don't even watch? I've seen so many people who literally do not even watch. Just come in with complaints about this and that because of stuff they've seen in Facebook posts. And I will never understand that. I just can't. And this, oh gosh. Like, I do get, okay, I do get that there are people I've seen literally drop this series or claim they have. And it's like, well, granted, I haven't been following since X, Y, and Z, but it sounds to me like they're writing Goku, and it's like, oh my god. I just... Look, getting down to the nitty-gritty, I've covered this before, and I will include a link to that video in the description, too. Goku has always put a good fight over pretty much anything else, okay? Be it, even up to, saving the planet. He's more he may have that as a background thought, but his focus first and foremost is on the fight in front of him. It's a trait he's had since Dragon Ball. To imply that somehow Goku should be mature, reverent of the gods, not caring about silly things like having a good fight when something serious is going, that's not Goku. It's simply not. Goku is, Goku. That's how he is. It's one of his defining traits. It's in his blood. And to say that he's out of character for acting like himself, I frankly never got. Toriyama even specifically said that one of his problems that people have with Goku's character, that he has with people's characterizations of Goku, is that they tend to try to make him more like heroic and altruistic than he actually is. Like that's more Gohan's thing. Gohan has the streak of I really don't like fighting, but I really, really want to be a superhero. I like the superhero aspect of things, the altruism, the getting the cats down from the trees, and that kind of thing. That's Krillin's kind of thing with what he does as a police officer. That's not Goku. Goku wants the thrill of a fight, and Goku's gonna go after the thrill of a fight. And that's not to say that Goku can't focus on other things while fighting or be affected by them. I mean, look what happened when Black told him about what happened when he made his wish and switched bodies. And then told him, oh yeah, by the way, I then killed your wife and your son after I murdered you in front of them. He flew into such a massive rage. I mean, we're talking like Frieza tier rage here. And just started pummeling the living hell out of that guy without, rhyme or reason or caring at that point. But sure, we're gonna pretend that Goku in the Super anime is written to only care about himself. Okay. I mean, you see him spending time with Goten. You see him, supporting Gohan. Now you can study as much as you want. Oh, it's okay if you don't want to come to this tournament. I understand studying's important too. Very, very supportive of his sons. And again, spends time with Goten a lot. But apparently is still that uncaring bad father from the memes. And we're starting to get close to one of the things I'm going to talk about that people probably don't like. But I just want to say that, I see so many people, getting upset over that, getting upset over arbitrary things like power levels, getting upset over things that frankly don't even matter, to the story, or things that are actually in character. It's just not fitting people's vision of what they think the character should be. And there is one certain person in particular that really, really gets under my skin with that, and I think they know who they are. And I think some of you know who it is too, because I'm sure you've encountered this person at least a couple times at one point or another. But that's, again, not the point. The point is, there are a lot of things to love about this series. I love the fact that characters who we had thought had fallen by the wayside have been getting a lot more focus. I love that we actually get to see the kids doing a lot more without having to try to involve them against villains that are like ridiculously, overpowered and ridiculously, Goten and Trunks have gotten to do things. Sometimes it's like sidestep, other times they have been able to get involved. Like, one of the reasons Tagoma actually stayed, in the anime version, and then the was not only for the sake of the Ginyu revival, which was awesome. It was nice to see Captain Ginyu again, but Goten and Trunks doing that, getting to do that flying headbutt right in. I mean, they got to do something, they got to show up in a fight again. We got to see them react to all this too, which people had complained about in the movie. It was something that they had an opportunity to then include in the series version, so they did, and it was cool. Of course, then people complained that for whatever reason they weren't, whipping into Super Saiyan 3 and beating everybody there. But that's an argument for another day. But we've been getting to see this stuff. I mean, Krillin has actually gotten, stronger again, and we've gotten to see him put his gifts to good use. In a way that, okay, so I'm not on the level of these, universe-busting aliens anymore. That's fine. I still have this power. I'm not going to waste it. And he goes out and he becomes a police officer. It's like just this side of the superhero thing. The more grown-up version, arguably. But yeah, Gohan wanted to go out there and be this tokusatsu Silver Age, or actually, arguably Golden Age. Well, now more Silver Age. Silver Age Superman type, hero. With all complete with the goofy poses and the flowing cape and the voice. Oh my God, the voice. But But Krillin goes out there and he becomes a police officer and he protects people. And he protects his family that way too. And, that's admirable. We get to see that Tien started up a dojo. Uh, and that's on top of, obviously, on top of the fact that he had been running a farm for a while. Um, we get to see all this stuff, we get to see Krillin and 18's home life. We get to see Marin actually have a personality now. We get to see 17, find out what happened to him. I love all this stuff, and there have been some great new characters besides. Great new characters. And I love seeing them. And even the future Trunks arc, as much as I hate the anime version of it, well, I shouldn't say hate, but I really strongly dislike the anime version of it, I can't fully hate it because of the character interactions we got to see. We got to see Trunks come back and talk to his younger self about how things were in his world versus how he's growing up and how he's actually a very lucky little boy. That he has both his parents, that he has all these friends around who care about him, and, he had to watch them die, or they were already dead. He never really got to know his father because his father died when he was very young. Heck, probably even a baby. Maybe not even born yet. I don't recall. But I don't think that they ever specified, but he was young enough that Trunks doesn't really have too many memories of him, other than what his mother has told him. All these people, die. And 18 back in his time, she was this horrible monster, and yet here she is. She's a wife, she's a mother, she's a very loving and caring one. And she shows it. And she's playful, she laughs, she makes jokes with people. Like, with him, he was, like, terrified of her and just, had flashbacks and had his hand on his sword, and she just wanders over to him, like, I hear you killed me, I ought to make you pay for that. And then she's like, just kidding, and walks off, laughing with her family. It blew his mind. Just how different things are. And that interaction was great. And the interaction with Gohan and seeing Gohan's daughter, the same Gohan that he watched, or that he knew died. He saw, he heard what Gohan had to go through. He saw what Gohan went through. He was there when he lost that arm. He saw him basically go off to that last mission to die. And there he is alive and with the family. Stuff like that was great. And that is, invaluable. And it's something that you don't really get that much of in the manga. The manga version of it. But you do in the anime, and that's a slightly redeeming factor. But if you really want to talk about damaging the series brand, I'm not going to go into too many details on these because this is already running a lot longer than I anticipated. But if you want to go into, things that have damaged the brand, let's look at Dragon Ball GT. Let's look at the fact that series, is, I'm sorry, straight garbage. It is. Plain and simple. Excuse me. Sorry. Plain and simple garbage. The plot holes in that were massive, and I don't care if you want to try to argue Super has some too. I would argue about a lot of those, but GT is like built on them because it's not only built on anime filler, it actually gets the anime filler it's built on wrong. Okay? And literally everything that you don't like about Super is magnified in GT. Right down to literally everyone not Goku essentially being a prop until the last arc. And then it's Goku and, who again? Oh yeah, Vegeta. Everybody but Goku and Vegeta is a prop. Which is a problem in the Super manga too, but I'll get into that in a sec. The characterization was just weird. I mean, Goku wasn't even acting like Goku anymore. He was kind of a generic anime protagonist. he kind of acted like him at first when the series first started, but as it went on, he just kind of lost all his old personality, all of it. And you want to talk about ridiculously OP. That Super Saiyan 4 thing, where allegedly whatever technique is used on him can't be used on him more than once because his body remembers and compensates the next time. Like, how is that not OP? That is like the very definition of OP. Especially since he doesn't even have to train with that form for all these new abilities to be there. And yet, oddly enough, he has to struggle to hold up a building without transforming into that form. Go figure. But then we move on to the Dragon Ball Super manga. Now that has also been an issue because first and foremost, it's not only got everyone massively confused because nobody could tell whether or not they're basing this on things that happened in the anime or whether it's its own set of events or what in the world he's doing since he's supposed to be following the same notes and yet some of the stuff he does is so radically different. And I know people have said that Toriyama said that he specifically approves of it. Toriyama specifically said that he approved of the folks at Toei and Toyotaro writing their respective versions of the series with minimum input from him aside from story and characterization, and that's it. That is what he thinks is better. There was this rumor that started that he said the Super manga was better, and then that he even said that the Super manga was better than the manga he wrote. All because of a quote where Toyotaro said, he basically lets me tell the story how I think I should tell it, without trying to, guide me too much. Toriyama said, yeah, I think it's, better that way. And it's the same thing he does with the anime. In fact, here's the funny thing, too. A lot of people like to say that the Dragon Ball movies like Resurrection F were actually quote-unquote more canon than Dragon Ball Super because they were directly written by Toriyama. If you read Toriyama's script that he got, that people got for attending the premiere in Japan, a special reproduction of the screenplay, the way Toriyama even describes it is basically the same thing that he did for Super. Which is, I wrote the story, I drew the character designs, I wrote some of the key pieces of dialogue, and other than that, though, I let them do whatever they needed to do because they're the masters on the other end, the animation end and the script writing end. Please do not take this as a pattern to write a script because it's really not. But, yeah. He does the same for both. The problem, I think, is that Toyotaro kind of takes things way too far in his own direction, and he's gotten himself written in so many corners that, honestly, he has borked so much. The thing about the Supreme Kai not being able to heal, and only disciples of the Supreme Kai being able to heal, if that's the case, first and foremost, if Boo got his healing powers, as in his power to heal other people and other things, from absorbing Daikaio so long ago, Daikaioshin, then how is it that, or how was he able to heal? If that's an ability that's locked only to the disciples of the Supreme Kai. Is what I don't get. But also in that same arc, Zamasu's using the time ring, which means Zamasu has to be, Kaioshin. But he's also healing Black, which means he can't be Kaioshin yet. He still has to be only the disciple of the Supreme Kai. But then Trunks is basically broken, like I mentioned earlier. But then he's essentially, regulated to Super Saiyan Dende. Where he's healing people. And then, in that same storyline, Goku, all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, has this move mastered. Plus, he's had this move this whole time, the Hakai technique, which apparently didn't used to be a technique, according to several people, until this manga arc happened. It was just a word that they said when they destroyed things. That he just happens to have learned by seeing off panel, I guess, maybe. That's about the best explanation. Which he also misses with, which Vegeta somehow also knew he had, which means that he had to have practiced with it, because Vegeta knew he knew it, or it's implied he knew it. And it's like this idea that and then Vegeta, who was literally barely able to stand, and had only been healed enough by Trunks to be able to stand, ran out there and and blasted Zamasu, fused Zamasu into pieces, two of them. Just from getting ticked off, and it's like he still has energy to fight with, and it's like, but how? I can understand maybe that one shot, but then he should be out cold. Instead, he's still standing. That's the kind of thing that I think is kind of dumb. And Trunks, too, is in Super Saiyan 2, and he healed Goku, which drained him so severely, and Vegeta, which drained him even more, and yet there he is going Super Saiyan 2. The manga has turned into a really incoherent mess. It doesn't know when to end the fight. Basically, it is Toyotaro's AF all over again. And it's kind of sad. He's even reusing ideas from AF. People found the scans where, the thing where Vegeta pops in between red and blue. That was something that Toyotaro actually took out of his AF manga when Vegeta was fighting Zycor, who, let's face it, is what his version of Black is. He draws him to look like him. He writes him to act like him at times. There are times, I swear to God, he's literally traced his face. I'm not joking. I don't like accusing people of tracing, but I swear to God, it's so similar, it's almost like he had to have traced it. That's not a serious tracing accusation necessarily, by the way. I'm just saying that he really draws him like Zycor at times. It's just perils of hiring someone who's only ever done fan dojins, fan stuff, fan manga that kind of overstayed its welcome. I just genuinely can't understand how, just everything that people complain about in the Super anime is present in the manga many times over. Goku genuinely looks down on Gohan, for example, calls him a bookworm, says Vegeta's crazy for thinking they should even invite him to the tournament for the Universe 6 arc. Because, that bookworm doesn't care about anything but burying his nose in books, and does cheat to get one up over Trunks in their little sparring match there. He still managed to forget the tag to seal, or rather grab the wrong tag to try to seal Zamasu when he did the Mafuba. And honestly, frankly, the Hakai technique is honestly more arguably of an ass pull than the Spirit Sword is. Because, at least there were people there to conceivably form that, and at least, it's still an ass pull, don't get me wrong. I just think it's a slightly less egregious one. And, And if you're going to ass pull Hakai and then have it not work, that's getting ridiculous. You're going to have Zamasu and Black threaten to defuse, but then kind of will themselves back together. Kind of ridiculous. But honestly, one of the things that I'm quite fond of some of the people who are members of this and who have contributed to it. There's some good people, and I do not think this was their intent, but I think it's an unintentional side effect. One of the things that has honestly damaged the Dragon Ball brand the most is Team 4 Stars Dragon Ball Z Abridged. And what I mean by that is that all the memes of Goku being literally retarded, all the memes of Gohan, being traumatized by Goku's lack of care as a parent. He's got these massive daddy issues. Piccolo being quote unquote green dad. Krillin being kind of a useless little coward who just makes jokes and then dies. The Krillin owned count. Vegeta honestly Vegeta honestly gets the best treatment out of anyone in that series. Although he still has his moments of being mocked, it's the least mean-spirited, I'd say. All that stuff, all these memes got reinforced by this series, and I get that one of the things that they were trying to do with that was kind of present the series the way the fandom views it, to kind of poke fun at how over the top some of their perceptions were, but in the process wound up feeding into it, and I think at one point they were kind of, capitalizing off that. And whether they intended it or not, there are people who will not take the series seriously anymore. There are people who actually try to argue that's the definitive version of the series. They took a really bland, generic, shonen series with really bad and primitive writing and elevated it. And, this is what all future stuff for Dragon Ball should be based on. And honestly, that could be part of why Toei is kind of getting really upset and trying to put their foot down on them right now. And really, their fans, again, not their fault, mostly their fans are making it worse by, hitting up Toei and harassing them, harassing their accounts, talking about how they're jealous of the show. It's... And I really do wish that those fans would, realize that, yeah, a lot of people like Dragon Ball Z Abridged, but even more people who haven't even heard of Dragon Ball Z Abridged like, Dragon Ball. And it's similar to the Faulkner situation. People keep insisting Bruce Faulkner made that series what it is, and it's like, you go anywhere outside the U.S. and you mention his name, and they're like, who's Bruce Faulkner? Even in the U.S. now, it's becoming less prevalent, so... it's just... It's mostly the fandom. And it's sad because, honestly, the guys who make Dragon Ball Z Abridged are some pretty big fans of Dragon Ball. I've seen Moscow X's videos. I've, spoken in online forums to, Kaiser Neko a few times. They're nice guys. They're willing to, sit there and just talk with people. They don't necessarily think they're above anyone just because they're part of this web series. But yeah, I can understand, to a degree why Toei's upset with this whole thing. I know some of the voice actors even for Funimation, while some, are, really cool with them, others aren't. A lot of them, are just kind of been, hey, that's cool, that's about it. But I can understand, to a degree why Toei's upset with that, and I do think to a degree, even though they didn't intend to, they kind of wound up damaging people's perceptions of the series, which is one reason though why I'm very appreciative that Moscow X does his Dragon Ball discussions. I will go on record as saying I don't agree with him on everything that he says in there, but the fact that he's willing to do it and actually, remind people, hey, this is what the series is like, I'm in this, but this is the show. That's a nice extra step, and I really do applaud him for that. And it's really not his fault that some of their fans just take things way too far. But, it is a sad side effect. A lot of people shape their perceptions of the series and the characters almost exclusively from that. I mean, it's gotten to the point where people actually got mad that Krillin, with his owned count, beat Gohan, even though he clearly beat him by strategizing. But that's apparently not enough, because now that means that Gohan was forever disrespected and they can't forgive that. Yes, I've actually seen people comment that. I've seen people say that in videos. I kid you not, Krillin at this point could literally solo Jiren. Okay, he could be the last person standing in this Tournament of Power. Solo Jiren without trying, with one arm tied behind his back. People would still find a way to make owned count jokes and talk about how it's just an indicator that Jiren wasn't really that strong. He was just intimidating, or yada yada, etc. You know, that kind of thing. People will find a way to crap on him. And they almost always fall back on the Krillin owned count to do it. And it does get really freaking annoying. But I've just come to accept that that's going to be a thing that I'm probably going to have to deal with. And it's sad, but there you go. At any rate, though, I've seen a lot of people, you know, really quote-unquote concerned about the Tournament of Power and reading a lot of episode descriptions and getting kind of bent out of shape over them. And it's like, I don't know why. I used to be like that. I used to have that problem. But then I kind of sat back and realized, you know, I'm all upset over this. And then I look at the episode and it's like, it didn't go down like I thought it was going to go down. Because, see, I had already convinced myself, because I read that, I automatically assumed this and this and this, and I assumed the worst. And when it didn't go down like that, it's like, I just realized I got all mad over nothing. And that's when I stopped, you know, taking those things as gospel, because really, they're only there to give you a tease, an idea of what's going to happen. To kind of, and sure enough, even with episode 99, with the spoilers that have come out, I'm not going to say what they are in here, for people who want to avoid spoilers, but, you know, we got one set, and it's like, oh my god, that would be kind of dumb after everything that's happened to lead up to that, but then it's like, oh wait, here's some more detail, maybe it doesn't go like that, and then even more detail, and it's like, oh hey, it really doesn't go down like that. Then we got the next episode preview, okay, from the end of 98, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff that happens between, you know, the start of that episode and what eventually happens that we didn't know about. And in point of fact, because what we know about isn't even teased until the beginning of the next episode, maybe it doesn't happen in this one. Maybe it happens in the beginning of that next one. We're just kind of assuming that it's going to go down in this one. Or maybe it almost happens in this one and it's a cliffhanger, but then it happens in the next one. We don't know. Nobody really knows how it's going to go down. And there's no point in, you know, freaking out over it. Just like there's no point in freaking out over... I'm sure people have heard it by now because people have probably made videos on it, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it here. Khalifa and Kaba apparently want to learn from Goku how to go Super Saiyan Blue because they saw it and they think it's awesome. And Vegeta, you know, being Vegeta, probably won't teach them, so they ask Goku. Goku says, okay, I'll tell you how to do it, you know, and I'll show you how I do it. But... you know, I mean, it's like, people are like, if Khalifa goes Super Saiyan Blue, I am quitting this. Guys, I'm going to say this now. I really don't think she's going to go Super Saiyan Blue. Just because you kind of need God Ki, and that's something they don't have right now. Short of Goku, I don't know, somehow... giving her enough to try it or something, I don't see that being a thing. And I mean, I really don't. And there's this idea that Goku and Vegeta busted their asses for years to get that level, and she hasn't. We haven't seen, first and foremost, how much this girl trains. Kaba was actually almost, you know, Vegeta even commented that he was pretty strong. You know, he was sort of close to as strong as him, and the kid hadn't even figured out how to go Super Saiyan yet. And Khalifa is apparently even stronger and more experienced than Cav, if her description was anything to go by. So she may have busted her ass for years to train too. And they didn't actually train that long to get Super Saiyan God. They trained about maybe a year, and then they finally had it, or Super Saiyan Blue. So like it's one of those things where, yeah, it would kind of be silly if she did, but number one, I don't think she did. Number two, you're kind of exaggerating exactly how horribly hard it was for those two to be able to attain it, even if she does. But yeah, it would be silly, but no, I don't think it's going to happen. And I think we're kind of freaking out again over nothing. And that's kind of just what this is all about, really. People freaking out over nothing. People freaking out over previews, over snippets from TV guides. And I just can't bring myself to do that anymore. I've learned to kind of let go of that. And I've realized that after doing that, and after kind of cutting loose my expectations and forcing myself to build them around, this little snippet of what's going to happen, and not jumping to speculations and then, getting upset either because what I wanted to happen didn't happen, or getting upset over what turns out to not be the case, or getting mad because my prediction video that got like 30,000 hits or something turned out to be bogus, and then what if people don't take me seriously anymore? Which I know was, I don't know if it's a big thing in the Dragon Ball community per se, but I know that back when the Naruto stuff used to be really big, people used to do that, and they get really upset if their prediction turned out to be fake and try to like find ways where they weren't entirely wrong to try to save it. Stuff like that. But I've seen people do that like online. Not necessarily in videos, but like in comments and forums and various things. Like I'm already seeing people like saying that Krillin gave 18 those sunglasses you see in the preview because he's gonna do the 100 times Kaioken, and that'll get him disqualified because sunglasses, aren't allowed. And it's like, Roshi wears his, and I'm sorry, but that's part of his character design. Is probably one of the dumber excuses I've heard people say as to why he won't be penalized, but 18 or Krillin would for 18 wearing them. I don't think that that's going to be anything we have to worry about. But yeah, it's stuff like that. We have to be, we have cases of people who said like so long ago that Krillin, it was pointless to recruit him. It didn't matter how much stronger he got, he'd always be useless. He's not going to do a single thing to help in this tournament. He's just going to get knocked out. The most he could possibly do to help is get himself killed so someone else gets disqualified, etc. Like, really bagging on the dude. Like, I mean, there's still people who are insisting that there's proof in all this that he's still weaker than Tien and Roshi, and it's like, no, he there's not, and he's not, but whatever. Basically, I think that the biggest piece of advice I can give to this fandom right now regarding Super is chill. Okay? Chill. Calm down. Wait for context. Try to avoid speculating, more than with and reading into things that are not there. Don't borrow trouble. Don't borrow positivity either. Like don't get yourself hyped up because you read something in a preview, and then get mad if that doesn't happen exactly how you envisioned it. Just chill out, relax. Enjoy the ride. Yes, it's one thing to be critical and analytical, but again, when you try to do that with a lack of information, in the end, it doesn't do anybody any good, and you wind up getting people hyped up or worked up over nothing. Um, I do, again, say that criticism, analysis, it's welcome, but like at least wait till something's out. I see people critiquing episodes before they even come out, based on what they read in like magazines, like 3 sentence previews of this episode. Don't do that stuff. Just hang on, see what happens. It might not be anywhere near as bad as you thought. It might not be quite as hype as you thought it was. It might meet your expectations entirely. It might be worse than you ever imagined. Who knows? But for now, just chill and enjoy what's happening. That's the best advice I can give. Okay. I save like the criticism and everything else for afterwards when we have the information we need to actually judge that episode. Don't sweat it in the meantime, and I think you'll find that you're actually able to enjoy this a lot more than you thought you would. I mean, that's what saved it for me, honestly. At any rate, I kind of got some stuff off my chest that I've been wanting to say for a while. Hopefully this, has been kind of enlightening to some of you, or interesting to some of you, or heck, maybe it just makes good background noise while you play video games. I don't know, but I hope you enjoyed it either way. And that is it for now, and I will catch you guys later. Unless, again, tell me what you really want me to talk about down in like the comments. Shoot me something on Ask FM maybe. I will link my Dragon Ball blog that I run on Tumblr. Yes, it's a Tumblr. It is. No, if you want to follow me on there, I encourage that. I do. I know people don't want to go on Tumblr because, whatever, but it's like, whatever. You can even, I have like anonymous asks open, so if people want to send me a message or ask me something on there, I'm pretty active on there. You can go ahead and do that, and, so long as you submit, like, anonymously, I don't think it matters. I don't think you have to have an account, because I have a non-messaging on, so even if you're not signed in or don't have an account, I think you can drop an ask. You won't know when I answer it unless you check back. But, otherwise, just make a dummy account or something and then follow that, and there you go. Problem solved. And that'll be the only thing you see in your feed, so you'd be good. At any rate, though, yeah, let me know if there's anything you really want me to talk about. If I find the time, I will try my best to do it. And I will catch you guys later. Adios.